Hello, everybody. Thank you guys so much for coming. I don't know who's here, so just like say something in the chat so I know who's here. Thank you guys so much. Oh, sorry. 1 second. I don't know who's here. Oh, shit. There we go. Okay. Yeah, thanks for coming. I'm super, super excited to discuss this film with all of you. I was thinking about putting the thing so that people can come on and talk to me in the chat, but there doesn't seem to be that many people here, so I don't really know what the point of that is. So I'm just going to kind of talk off the cuff about the film, and then, you know, whoever wants to chime in or add questions, like, can do so in the chat. I'll be looking in and like answering your questions and like reading out your like responses and stuff, especially for those who weren't able to make it and who will be watching this after the fact. So let's dive right in. The Witch. This is one of my favorite films. I'm a huge horror fan, and I consider it to be a feminist, satanic masterpiece. Hello, Aces. Hello, brilliant Dr. Fly. Hello, everybody who's here. I consider it to be sort of a feminist masterpiece. A lot of the themes really resonated with me, especially as somebody who grew up in a, you know, really Christian household. It really kind of touched me in a way that I didn't think a horror film could, on like a very kind of visceral, emotional level. So I guess we'll just start with the plot. Hopefully everybody's seen it, so it doesn't matter if there's spoilers or whatever, but it basically, it follows a family, you know, of colonial settlers who are banished from their community of colonial settlers for being too overly pious. So they go out into the wilderness basically to make it on their own, because they believe that their community isn't to the religious standards of, you know, their like hyper kind of like New England Protestant religiousness. So they go out into the wilderness, into this new territory on their own to try and make it as a family, and things get dark very quickly and they devolve very quickly. Not only is there this sort of supernatural threat that's looming, there's also the threat of the family dynamic itself beginning to unravel. Suspicion, fear, repression, all of these things are themes that sort of arise. The most fascinating aspect of it for me was the idea that, you know, they're in civilization, and civilization kind of representing the male god kind of archetypical deity, and then they go out into this wild, untamed nature, which sort of represents the feminine aspect of the godhead, and this is something that they're not necessarily equipped to deal with. Especially the father, the patriarch of the family, he tries to put on this sort of front of being this strong kind of leader, you know, head of the family, but really and truly he's pretty clueless. His wife carries a lot of the weight, so does his little son. Thomason, the protagonist of the story, the main girl, does a lot of, you know, the weight for him, and he has a lot of pride and hubris in the way that he kind of acts in the world, and like, you know, decides to kind of portray himself. The most interesting aspect of the film to me is the way the family turn on each other. I think that that's where the real horror lies. The brilliant Dr. Fly said, "I've read a pretty compelling analysis of The Witch. I'll bring it up later in case you cover ideas from it yourself." Yeah, definitely. I would love to see. There's so many wonderful analyses of The Witch from all kinds of different angles. The thing that, like I was saying, the thing that intrigued me the most about it was the family dynamic, and how that very quickly unraveled, and how these supernatural kind of forces took advantage of the fault lines that already existed within this family, especially along lines of gender as well. You know, we're introduced to the father and the young son of the family, and how the father is sort of trying to mold the young son after him as a successor almost. You know, teaches him how to hunt, teaches him the ways of, you know, their religion and all of these things. Whereas Thomasin is really capable. We see that from the beginning. She's very capable. She's very, you know, strong, but she's maligned, obviously, because of her sex. And this is, you know, quite obviously something that was quite common in these days. But she actually ends up emerging stronger than anybody else. And, you know, the sad part of it is most of the blame for the events that occur in the film also get put on her because of her sex. You know, and especially, and I thought it was very interesting that they made her character, she's just kind of like coming through puberty, like she's flowering into a woman. So therefore she's like more dangerous in that regard. That's why she's more of a lot of the suspicion is put on her because of this like weird psychosexual tension that's going on in this weird family. You know, the reason I really like this film is because it takes the premise of the witch seriously from the Christian Judeo perspective. What if it was actually like that? What would lead a woman to sign a pact with the devil? It takes this question seriously because, you know, the old stories back in the day about witches were that, you know, they were, you know, women who came from fringe parts of society who would then go into the woods one night and sign a pact with the devil. And, you know, it really gets you thinking, like, who in their right mind would do something like that? And this film is kind of the origin story of what, if it was true, would lead a woman to take such a drastic action, would lead a woman to completely cut herself off from the community and to take this sort of diabolical path. And we see that it really stems from the pressure. It stems from this immense amount of pressure that is put upon women in this society. And the devil in this case is kind of a way out almost. So what happens to Thomasin at the end is almost like a wish fulfillment thing, in that sense. I'm going to have a quick look at the chat and see what people are saying. I think my favorite part, Asus J says, I think my favorite part of the film is the atmosphere they create, both in the filming location, which is much further north than the setting, and the amazing dialect work. Yes, I definitely agree. The setting is absolutely fantastic. And all the actors were amazing. They managed to pull off the northern accent pretty well. I can't even do a northern accent, and the north isn't that far away from you know, it's not that far away from me. Let's see what else. Asus, to me, those together create an unsettling atmosphere, like a dream, but the kind that feels real. I definitely agree. The brilliant Dr. Fly says, the classic role of the older daughters acting as a second mother to their younger siblings. Yes. Thomasin, because the mother was a little bit batshit crazy, which we see towards the end. Thomasin had to take on this like heavy role of basically keeping this family together while they were at the same time turning against her. They were turning against her, especially because she was sort of flowering into womanhood. And, you know, that's seen as suspicious because along with that comes sexuality and all kinds of complicated things. And, you know, the family was even making a plan to send her away to go and work for another family because their crops were blighted and they needed, you know, money and all kinds of things. Yeah, so there's all that weird tension there. I love the twins. The twins to me were one of my favorite aspects of the movie. I thought that the twins were really adorable. They were like little satanic, creepy twins. That's right up my alley. Let's see. Oh yeah, it was filmed in Northern Ontario. I didn't know that actually. Yeah, it's a really beautiful setting. Makes sense why the forest is so mixed and not quite New England. Yes. Lito says, I got anti-colonialism vibes. I could definitely see that. There was sort of a hint at it. The fact that, you know, these settlers decided that they were going to go off into the wild and do their own thing because of their, you know, deep religious convictions. But then they fail because part of the reason the family has such a hard time and part of the reason why they start tearing each other apart is because their crops are blighted. So this land, this, you know, feminine principle of the earth and the land isn't yielding for them, which I thought was very, very interesting. There's all kinds of really interesting feminist undertones to what was happening. Let's see what else is going on. Yeah, that Northern Light is just cold and uncompromising. That long northern twilight in the forest scenes with the woman in red, amazing. Yes, I agree. Yeah, that woman in red kind of temptation scene with the younger brother. I really felt bad for the younger brother, what happened to him, because he was also blossoming into his pubescent stage as well, and he just starting to sort of think about things like sexuality and things like that. So, but obviously there's no one else around other than his sister, so there was like some weird tension there that I found pretty uncomfortable. But yeah, it's really interesting and very weird and like very Freudian and very messy. Uncompromising. Let's see what else people are saying. It would be wicked if that crew put together a Wendigo horror film, particularly based on the Algeron Blackwood story, with a more traditional indigenous understanding of the Wendigo. That's really interesting. I would love to see that. I'm interested in the whole Wendigo folklore. I don't know much about it, but I would definitely be interested in seeing a film that was based around it. Oh yeah, low angle light through the forest, so menacing. Oh yeah, definitely. Robert Eggers is like one of my most anticipated directors. I'm definitely watching out for whatever he makes next. Apparently he's going to be doing a remake of Nosferatu, which I'm really excited about. So yeah, he did a really, for his debut film, this was like excellent. I think he's definitely one to watch. The twins were the fucking shining light. I know, I love the twins. They're so adorably evil. Yeah, Black Phillip was like, all along there. It's interesting to look at how the father is trying to be the traditional breadwinner, but fails at the stereotypical masculine activities, the hunting and the providing for his family. Yes, I definitely agree. This movie is a complete subversion / mockery of those sorts of traditions, which I thought was really interesting. What I also thought was really interesting about, the devil had to get rid of Thomason's whole family in order to like, for her to be free, for her to be liberated. And when we see her joining the witch's coven at the end, it's not this like dark, it's kind of dark and scary, but there's also this like weird sense of liberation / elation that came with it, which I found really interesting. It was very much like a wish fulfillment thing. The only one he succeeds at is chopping wood, and he gets buried under it. Yeah, definitely. That I thought that was like some very comic irony there. Aces J says they were not in relationship with the land. No, they weren't. They were trying to dominate the land. And, traditionally in witchcraft, Wicca, occult belief systems, the land is always sort of personified as like the feminine principle, Mother Earth, blah, blah, blah. And instead of trying to be in communion with it, they try to dominate it because they're coming from that sort of masculine sky god paradigm. And because they tried to dominate the land the same way they tried to dominate Thomason, it didn't really work out for them. There's all kinds of weird metaphysical through lines running through this film that I think are really interesting. Angie speaks, don't mind me obsessing about the light. I'm Canadian and I recognize it. Oh, no, it's fine. Obsess away. Dr. Fly, Caleb being seduced and subsequently dying from being horned up is an allegory for being horny on Maine on Twitter. Funny. I felt bad for Caleb. What happened to Caleb was pretty sad. IMO, poor kid. He just wanted to. All the puberty hormones were like kicking around inside him, and there was like no healthy place for them to go, and it was very easy for the dark supernatural forces to take advantage of that aspect of things. The most terrifying part of the film for me was Caleb's like just right before he died, and he gave this like crazily profane speech. It was really well acted, really unsettling, and just seeing this family fall apart. It was very, yeah, it was very, very, very interesting. Let's see. Did y'all see the big, huge cross light in the forest as she walks into the woods at the end? Yes, I did see that. There's all kinds of cool tricks that were done with the lighting in this film. Satan was styling. I need to look back at that, blah, blah. The only source of warm light is fire, and it's always night. Yes, yes. Mother Earth or sovereignty goddess like the Morrigan. Yes, exactly. The idea of them trying to sort of bind the earth to their will and that not working out has a very sort of feminist message to it. And also the freedom that's afforded to Thomasin at the end of the film, you know, it's a little bit nihilistic because she had to, you know, kill her mother with her bare hands, and pretty much everyone in her family died or taken by the other coven of witches. But, you know, at the end, it's almost like she has absolutely nothing left. Like, she's there, she's soaked in her mother's blood, and then along comes Black Phillip. And Black Phillip asks her if she likes the taste of butter and, you know, if she wants all the fine things in the world. And at this point, she's like, why the fuck not? I didn't even do anything wrong, and they all fucking turned against me. My own mother fucking tried to kill me. So why not go into the woods and shake my butt with the other witches? I'd go into the fucking woods and shake my booty with the other fucking witches. Like, it's that kind of thing that you see. It's like taking the whole kind of narrative, you know, the old narrative about women as witches and like why a woman would then go and sign a pact with the devil to become a witch. This movie is exactly that kind of origin story, and it makes a lot of sense considering the amount of pressure that women were put under, especially those who were just budding into their womanhood, just budding into their, you know, sexual, like, you know, sexuality and things like that. That was really considered as a threat by this society. And, you know, I thought it was very, very interesting the way that they chose to explore that. Let's see. Jumping ahead, but is there some meaning in the way only warm light is used when the family is around the table, and then when Thomasin is joining the witches, symbolizing her new family? Yeah, I definitely think so. I definitely think that, especially in the scenes in the film that are more intimate, there was the warm light was supposed to sort of represent that hearth, that home, that family, that warmth that comes from family, and how that can be perverted by these external forces like religion or society or expectations and things like that. And then, you know, the warm light when Thomasin is with the witches, again, that it's like her new family. She's now come out of her old family and has found a new place in the world. Let's have a look. Can we talk about the weight of the word butter? Would you like to elaborate on that? I didn't necessarily have any analysis of the word butter and why that was necessarily used as a choice. I just thought it was meant to symbolize, like, you know, decadence and, you know, indulgence in that sense of the word. Like, he was kind of tempting her with worldly pleasures in that regard. It's such a humble thing, but it's also an indulgence. Yes, that's really interesting. Dr. Fly, I mean, it's humble by our standards, but without refrigeration or even a cow for milk, it would probably seem like a hell of a luxury. Yeah, exactly. Would they make better butter if it was goat's milk? Is that any good? I have no idea. I don't think I would like to try goat's milk butter. That sounds really weird. It might be good though. I don't know. I'd have to like Google that and see if that's a thing. Actually separate from cream. It was interesting. Yeah, it was very, yeah, when the milk turned to blood, that was another pretty terrifying scene. You know, when they tried to get the confession out of the twins told them from the beginning that it was Black Phillip, but nobody wanted to listen. And the goat that played Black Phillip was a pretty phenomenal actor. That goat was pretty special, definitely. I remember, I think it was last summer, I went to a farm and like saw like a black goat, and I was like, oh my god, it's Black Phillip, and I was like really terrified that this goat was gonna come tonight at life and like kick the shit out of me or like stab me with its horns, or you know, invite me to, you know, sign the book. Yeah, it was very interesting. There's so much to unpack with this film. It's such a, I think it's such a masterpiece. I think it's like almost reminiscent of Kubrick in a lot of ways. I definitely, and Robert Eggers himself did say that he was trying to sort of go for that. He was very inspired by The Shining. So a lot of the ways that the shots were set up, and also some of the themes that the film tackled, are also kind of inspired by The Shining. The Shining is yet another one of these films that has this sort of pristine American rural setting that has this like deep malevolence / corruption lingering beneath the surface. One that shows us a mirror of ourselves and our society. I thought the way that the film dealt with its themes of religion as well, and religious fundamentalism, and, you know, budding sexuality and pubescence and all of these things was very, very interesting. And I thought that the answer to the issues at the end, you know, with Thomason finding liberation through the more diabolical means, was also quite interesting. I know that the Satanist Church they endorsed the film when it came out. It was like they thought it was like the most satanic film ever made. So they definitely they embraced it. So they had like a really good time with that. Let's see what other people are saying. The twins were totally into Black Phillip. Yeah, the twins had a fucking nursery rhyme about Black Phillip. I don't know if you guys caught that. The twins like literally had a nursery rhyme, and it's like really terrifying. Imagining these like two little naughty kids basically like communing with the devil in their fucking backyard. It's pretty funny stuff. The rabbit too. I honestly don't know what the rabbit was supposed to symbolize. And I've heard a lot of different theories, but none that have really like resonated with me, because traditionally in paganism and different sort of mythologies, rabbits have always symbolized fertility. But you know, in this case, the land is completely barren. So I don't know if it was supposed to be some kind of juxtaposition. Something's going on there. Sorry, my cat's like screaming. What do you want? Okay. Okay, Angie, real talk. You signing Black Phillip's book? I'm not going to be signing Black Phillip's book anytime soon. I'm not into the whole like satanic paradigm. It's just not me. Maybe there's still a little bit of Christian guilt in there, but it's just never been me. I'm more into my like love and light pagan shit. Even though today I do kind of have a bit of a witchy aesthetic. I did bring my witch's hat to wear for you guys. I'm gonna put it on now. I did bring it to wear for you guys so that you can like have a good laugh, yuck it up. What else? The rabbit was very menacing. Great animal work in this film, especially Black Phillip. Yes. The animals were all really, really great in this. Kitty, yeah, he's being annoying. The rabbit, maybe the rabbit is one of the witch's familiars. Yeah, but I thought that it may have something to symbolize thematically or something like that. If any of you guys have any ideas about it, I'd be interested to know. I thought there's a strong there's a strong folklore tradition of witches taking the form of hares. That's really interesting. I didn't know that. So maybe it was the witch in the form of a hare. Rabbit was one of the witches, maybe, and Hawk. Yeah, that Hawk scene was fucking terrifying, where the Hawk was like, was it like tearing at her tit, or was it like drinking milk from her tit? It was like pecking at her tit. That really was like unsettling. That was like some of the best horror I've seen in a while. It was like pretty, that scene was forever burned into my retinas. Oh, hot, Angie. I love it. Thank you very much. Iconic. Is it iconic? It's like a fucking $2 hat from like a Halloween store. I need to invest in like a proper witch's hat. One day I'll get like a proper like velvet one. Lots of folk stories from Ireland about witches running about in hair form. I didn't know that. That's really interesting. I'm going to be aware of hairs now because, you know, hang on. Blah, blah, blah. Oh gosh, the dog dying was horrid. Yeah, I'm really not into like animals dying on screen. It really, really fucks with me. Um, Thomason's animal. Maybe it was Thomason's animal, who knows? Rabbits are mentioned as like an unclean animal in the Old Testament. Ooh, really? I did not know that. That's really interesting. Why would rabbits be seen as unclean though? They're so cute. Well, not the rabbit in The Witch. That rabbit had some weird shit going on with its eyes. And also in the new Jordan Peele's Us movie, there's also a rabbit theme in that as well. So rabbits are kind of like the new horror movie darling at the moment. Kind of scares me. Maybe rabbit is innocence. That's also very possible. The European hare was unsuccessfully introduced into New England, and Thomason expresses a lot of longing for her old way of life. Oh, that's actually really interesting. So maybe it is sort of a foil for Thomason in that way. That's actually a really good way of analyzing it. Um, uh, uh, yeah, there's the animals symbolize a lot of different things. And whenever animals are used in such a way, you know, they usually have some sort of thematic reason behind it. But yeah, I'm definitely interested to hear more theories about, you know, the different animals. And of course, the goat, Black Phillip, you know, goats have always been associated with the devil and things like that. So that made sense. Yeah, definitely. Just taking a look. Though it chews the cud, does not have a divided hoof. I think it's Leviticus in my Bible memory. It was sort of blocked after Catholic school. Oh, yeah. The Bible says a lot of weird things. I am a witch here with a tattoo. Ask me anything. Oh, I mean, the one that was pecking, yeah, at her breast. Yeah, the thing that was pecking at her breast in the film. That was pretty terrifying scene. I thought it was like a hawk or something. I'm not sure what it was. Yeah, I was, and you know, the movie started out sad too. Like the fucking baby. Like I'm at the stage in my life where I don't like to see bad things happen to babies, or like watch movies that have like baby missing narratives. And you know, they have this cute little bundle of joy, and then it just goes missing. And then on top of that, you get to see what the witch is planning to do with the baby as well, which really upset me. Like seeing a baby in such a menacing situation really upset me. So from the beginning, I was like ready. I was like, oh my god, this is gonna be a fucking ride and a half, isn't it? This is gonna be an emotional roller coaster, and it was. And you know, Thomason didn't deserve any of the shit that happened to her. None of them, you know, none of them really did, except the parents. The parents were the most clueless and the most useless members of the entire family. And you know, the people who were really keeping shit together were Thomason and her younger brother. Yeah, it was quite unsettling, especially as somebody who comes from a dysfunctional family where religion is like a really huge thing. It just like it got me on a very emotional level. Let's see. Yeah, I mean, it was pecking through the best. I think it was a raven. Yeah, it was very interesting. Yeah, so I'm gonna like leave it open now. So if you guys will have any other things that you want to discuss or any themes that you want to bring light to, now's the time to do so. Otherwise, I will do a quick roundup and then we'll call it a day. Said, yeah, that was intense. I choose to interpret the baby plus the witch scene as Thomason's dark imagining instead of what actually happened. Yes, I heard that. A lot of people did think that the witch element, the supernatural element, wasn't necessarily literal. A lot of people, you know, read the film as an allegory, sort of a dark metaphor that was parallel to, you know, the actual events of this family's unraveling and Thomasin's like awful encounter. I don't know if I agree. I think there was a supernatural element to the film. I think it did definitely happen. I think those things definitely did happen. But I do also like that read too. I think it's a really interesting read of what occurred. What do you think about the egg? I don't know. You see, there's a lot of fertility imagery. So rabbits are associated with fertility. You know, eggs are associated with fertility. The cow is associated with fertility, and the cow's udder, you know, brings forth blood instead of milk. You know, I think that it's supposed to parallel the barrenness of the land. So I think that's, I guess, what that all of that fertility imagery is meant to, you know, to show basically. And also I think it has something to do with the suppression of the feminine maybe as well, considering the fact that, you know, the land is maligned and they're attempting to sort of dominate the land, this sort of feminine force, and the land is rejecting them. And the same thing with Thomasin, where her femininity is seen as a threat. You know, there's all kinds of different aspects of it that could be, you know, why this imagery of fertility is constantly evoked. I'm not sure. If you guys have any ideas, I'd be interested to hear. Yeah, it's pretty interesting. It's pretty interesting how many layers there are to these films. And one of the things that I'm the most excited about, in order to round up, oh, someone said, I think I have a mixed read. I think some of it was perception and some of it was literal. The whole body climax plus Thomasin's fight at the end, and the boundary between was quite blurry. I agree. Yeah, that's an interesting take. Everything is barren except for Thomasin, who gets her period. Yeah, that's true. That's true. There is this sort of invocation of these fertility totems. And especially because that's the stage of life that Thomasin is in. She's flowering into a woman. And again, this is something that's very threatening in this society. And obviously we see how this sort of society problematizes sexuality, especially when it pertains to women, young women. So I think that may be the reason why the rabbit and the egg and all of this fertility, you know, totems are alluded to in the film. More red. Yeah, there was a lot of red imagery, Red is such an interesting color thematically. Red is associated with blood. So it's associated with like, it's associated with women's menstrual cycles. It's associated with creativity. It's also associated with sin. There's all kinds of different thematic undertones that the color red has. Yeah, it's very interesting. It's very interesting. Samuel was swaddled in a red blanket. The witch wears a red cloak. Thomasin is smeared in her mother's blood. Yeah, yeah. There's a lot of red blood, you know, and that's another thing that you see thematically in films and in stories and in mythology and folklore, is like the parallel between woman, blood, the scarlet letter, the scarlet woman, scarlet sin, womanhood equals sin. Being a woman is a sin, basically, especially being a young woman that is, you know, flowering into womanhood and sexuality and all of those things. It's a sin. And like, you know, that's the color red has and that's the reason why I wear red lipstick. The reason why I tend to have red nails a lot of the time. The reason why I wear a lot of red as well is because I see it as like a very powerful color that's like very heavily associated with some of the things that I'm trying to kind of reclaim, you know, about who I am and things like that. And like also the archetype of the witch being like reclaiming the archetype of the witch, the archetype of, you know, the woman on the fringes and on the boundaries of society. Yeah, it's very interesting, very interesting. Let's see. Oh yeah, I should find the analysis and read it. It basically revolves around the movie being a story that someone living at the colony would make up as a warning for people not to leave the colony, for children to obey their parents, for young men and women to repress their sexuality. That's interesting. It's interesting, definitely. Definitely. So we're going to round up now. And I'm going to say that art house horror is something that you guys should definitely, especially if you're a fan of that kind of thing, keep an eye out for, because it's where a lot of interesting things are going on in cinema at the moment. You know, Jordan Peele's new movie Us, The Witch, The Babadook. There's so many great horror films that have, like, art house, good quality, high quality horror films that have come out in the last couple of years. I know that Ari Aster has a film coming out this year called what's it called again? It's like a folk horror piece about a cult, you know, in Sweden, I believe. I'll post a link to the trailer in the movie discussion chat. That looks fucking awesome. You know, really thematically heavy, meaty horror films, you know, that are ripe for unpicking are coming out. And, you know, people are saying that this year is going to be a really, really, really good year for horror. You know, and we've already seen that with Jordan Peele's Us, which is one I would love to analyze with you guys, because I have a lot to say about that film. Yeah. So thank you guys so much for coming and joining me on our first ever Angie Speaks Movie Club stream. I would like for it to be more interactive next time. Hopefully we'll be able to get more people to come through so we can have more people on. I'm also considering doing it so that we actually watch the film together real time. The only reason I wanted to avoid that is because I don't like to talk while I'm watching a film. I just like to, like, absorb it and then come and then talk to people about it afterwards. I literally will have to put that up to a vote and see what you guys prefer, because I'm up to doing whatever you guys, like, would rather do in that regard. Thank you guys for coming to this first ever broadcast of the Angie Speaks movie theme. There'll be another one next month. It was really lovely talking to you guys, and I shall see you in the Discord. Much love. Goodbye. Bye.